how much help it was, but we got it, and I didn't think we were.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, we've got more good news to share today. So I see we're getting folks joining us. Give everybody a couple of minutes. That's what I do love about this industry. Folks get on early. Hi, Dawn.
Good morning, Paul.
It is going to be a good morning. This is going to be a good day.
Hey, it's going to be 80 today. It's a good day.
Very true.
Good morning, Paul. This is Jude.
Hey, Jude. Good to have you on, buddy.
How you doing, buddy?
You know what? I'm doing
Good to
great
be on.
today.
Good.
You guys made my day, but we'll hold that.
Well, we just have a great partnership, buddy, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, hey, thank you.
Morning, Paul. You've got Shawn Yadon on the line.
Hey, my friend from the Golden State, Shawn. Good to have you, buddy.
Great to be here with you.
Thank you. And do we have Senator Gansert? Not yet, but sure she'll be on. We're going to take things a little out of order from, how we normally proceed today, or how we've normally proceeded. But that I've got a reason and rationale for that. I see more folks are joining, so I'm just going to give folks another couple minutes, or let me not say minutes, seconds, to join in, and then we'll start rocking and rolling. Hey, Mr. Meyer. I see Jim Hayes' dog. It kind of looks like my dog. Is that a rat terrier or a mini Dobie?
It's a Chihuahua.
My dad always accuses me of having a Chihuahua. So
he's a great dog.
Yeah, no, I've got one. I call him Formal George because it looks like he's wearing a tux, just like that. Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and rock and roll. I want to thank everybody for calling in today. We do have some good news on a number of fronts. And so let's just go ahead and kind of start and see, kind of as we do every week, although since we have some good news today, I'm not going to go through all the data, with the nation and New York that we usually do. But we'll just go ahead and kind of see where the state is today, in terms of the pandemic. So, as you can see, and this is something that, we do take a gander at every week. This was last week. So last week we had 253 deaths, 5,227 folks that tested positive for the coronavirus in the Silver State. Where are we at this week? Well, this week we've got 50 more deaths and we have 500 more positive cases. So we have seen those go up, but there is some good news in this. And this is something that the governor said last night. We have seen a decrease in the number of cases since April 21st. And so that is a good thing. And that has, given the governor enough of a thought to say, hey, we're going to go ahead. We have increased let me try to gather my thoughts here a little bit. we've got the capacity in the hospitals to take care of this. We have flattened the curve. So, he said, we are in a pretty good place. So, where are we at in Nevada? Well, this is, when you look at those University of Washington models, here's where we're at. You can see this is, this right here back in the first part of March. That's, social distancing. And you can see we've done a pretty good job of social distancing here. We see that relaxed a little bit, that more people are going to be moving around. And I think, we've seen that, out on the roads. I've seen it in Reno. The big box stores a lot more packed. Testing and infections, we're seeing infections go down, testing go up. So these are good things. We are seeing a stepped decrease in the number of deaths. And of course, that absolutely is a good thing. Hospital resources, pretty flat. So that means that here in the Silver State, we have really been able to meet the needs of the people that are sick from this virus. And hey, 297 deaths or 93, it's a lot, but it's a lot better than folks thought we were going to be. So what does it look like here in the Silver State? So just in terms of trucking, and I got this fun little data set from Rebecca Brewster today. And I know this is not what every company is dealing with. I know that there are a lot of trucking companies out there, small trucking companies that have had to park their trucks. We've had big trucking companies lay folks off, LTL folks lay people off, but we are seeing a lot more activity in the trucking sector. So this comes from our friends at the American Transportation Research Institute. Rebecca Brewster sent this to me this morning. And Nevada, I'm proud to say, is the first state that they're going to do a truck activity dashboard for, to show what's going on in our industry. So how does this index work? They looked at all the truck activity throughout the state of Nevada. They have trucks that have GPS units on them, and they said, okay, we're going to choose the week of February 9th as our benchmark. That will be our benchmark when all the trucks are running, that we're going to look and see what happened. So we see a peak, get back to that. We see a peak in the first part of March, and then it goes down a little bit. And I think some of that's from the business closures, and then it goes up. Once again, kind of meeting the needs of all the citizens here, making sure that our healthcare providers had the supplies that they need, our grocery store shelves were stocked, and then we kind of saw that marked decrease. But if you look at where we're at today, we're back up. And according to Mrs. Brewster, Nevada is the state that has bounced back the most with truck activity. Now, I'd like to hear from you guys why you think that is. I have my own thoughts. In talking to a number of our members, I know that there is a lot of e-commerce that is happening. Does that always mean more money, more revenue? No, we see a lot more e-commerce activity means a lot more of those expensive last mile trips to get that package to somebody's doorstep. I was talking to a courier service the other day who told me that their drivers are making 30% more deliveries than usual, but their revenue is down. So I don't want anybody to think that, hey, this truck activity, seeing it up is necessarily, a great thing. I definitely don't want legislators to think that our industry is getting fat from this, but I do want our decision makers, our regulators, the public to know that the trucking industry, the private sector, has really been able to step up and meet so many of the challenges that have been caused by this pandemic. I've got a couple of hopes coming out of this. My hope is people see the value that the private sector provides, and especially our industry, in their everyday lives. My other hope is, for, me, my friends, my neighbors, my kids, that coming through this is something that all of us are going to remember until the day we die. And I am really hopeful that people are going to have a much better understanding of what our rights are, how much we value our liberty, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who don't like being locked down, who don't like their businesses being closed. So, that's my hope. That's the optimism in me. We've got good reasons to be optimistic here on a Friday. And part of that has to do with the economy reopening. Yesterday, Governor Sisolak at 3 p.m. made an announcement that tomorrow at 12:01 a.m. that businesses could start their phase 1 reopening. And this is his Nevada United roadmap to recovery. So let's take a look and see what this is going to look like. So there are some new requirements. There's a requirement that all employers shall require their employees, especially those who interact with the public, to wear a face covering or a mask. We've ordered masks. I know a number of you have asked for them. I am doing my best, but we're working through both the Chinese customs and the US customs. The newest data delivery I have on that is between today and the 13th. So the 14th is probably going to be the latest day that we're going to get those. As soon as we get them, Kim has been great. She's got all the boxes ready to go. She's got everybody's name on them. So as soon as we get those, we're going to put them in a box, or we'll call you if you're up here in Northern Nevada to come and pick those masks up. So some of the other things that the governor, and I'm going to send this out to everybody, so you're going to have to take a whole bunch of notes. So, some of the other standards that have been created, and once again, this is something that OSHA is going to be enforcing here in the Silver State, asking businesses to encourage face coverings. Once again, telework, have a staggered approach to employees returning, close those common areas, a lunchroom, a cafeteria where folks are there. Follow the guidance from the Labor Commissioner on sick policies. I'm going to see if we can have her on next week to talk about some of those things, make some of those accommodations for those employees who are part of a vulnerable population. Have your employees do a self-assessment. So if they're sick, don't come into work. If you have trouble breathing or a fever or coughing, don't come into work. And then cleaning. And we have on our website a list of those EPA, it's the EPA List N of cleaning products that will kill the human coronavirus. That is on our website, so you can go there and take a gander. We also have information on, posters, washing your hands, how to make a mask, how to clean your truck cab. So we have resources there for you to be able to put those in your office. I know Mr. Truman has done some things to encourage social distancing with cords across doors. So, there are some different things that businesses are doing to make sure that their employees are following these rules. Businesses that can reopen with restrictions, retail businesses, and that's 50% of occupancy. And that includes all the folks who have been open. So, Lowe's, a Home Depot, a Walmart, grocery stores, they have to limit their occupancy to 50%. Open air malls, they may stay open. Standalone stores, so you can go in there. Once again, social distancing requirements. Indoor malls will not remain open. So up here in Northern Nevada, I have a questions. Dillard's is a standalone store. Macy's is attached to the mall. Can I go in one and not the other? Not sure yet. So I think some of that guidance still has to work itself out. I kind of like this. If you want to buy a car, you don't have an employee of the dealership with you. So, you can go and do whatever you want with that rig, really, see if it meets all the promises. And then drive-in movie theaters can remain open. So those businesses that are closed. And I also want to say, hey, barbershops can remain open. Nail salons can remain open. So, there are definitely some areas where we have loosened some of those restrictions. Those businesses that are going to remain closed, of course, nightclubs, bars, gyms, entertainment facilities, brothels, spas, strip clubs, tanning salons, body piercing, tattoo parlors, and gaming. So that's where we're at with phase one. I do know that Marilyn Kirkpatrick, J. Jacob Gachea, Dagny Stapleton with the Nevada Association of Counties are working to see if we can get into a phase two. They're part of this LEAP committee, local empowerment, and LEAP stands for Local Empowerment Advisory Panel. They reached out to us asking for guidance for transportation. We put together a document that I showed everyone last week that we thought was going to be made public yesterday, industry-specific guidance. But this is what we got instead. So, transportation, once again, hey, you've already been operating, you can continue to operate, but you need to adhere to strict social distancing and all the rules set forth by those agencies. Of course, FMCSA, OSHA, those folks. And once again, in an office, social distancing, if you can telework, great. And then this was on there, but we've got some breaking news and very, very happy about it. Puts a big smile on my face. State and local government offices are closing. Now, I've heard from a lot of folks, truck driving schools, individual drivers. I talked to one down in Gardnerville on Saturday who was trying to transfer his CDL from Nevada to California and wasn't able to do that because while DMV has been doing a phenomenal job in terms of motor carrier and getting trucks registered and doing things like VIN inspections with a cell phone photo, which I love, and that's something I'm hoping that we can keep, after we're done with all this. The CDL office has been closed. So you couldn't get people to go in and get a CDL or a commercial learner's permit. I know that has been an issue for a lot of our companies, those companies that have their own training program or the truck driving schools that have their own testing facilities. But with that little hook, I am now going to turn it over to the DMV and Julie Butler, Director of DMV. Do we got you? Well, I see we have her. Julie, you there?
Paul, I think she's working to unmute her system there. I'm sorry for the delay.
Hey, no worries. Because I'd love Julie to deliver the good news. If she doesn't, Jude, it may be you, buddy.
Oh, Lord, help us all.
I'm going to say this. Yesterday, we had a conversation with DMV leadership, those folks in the CDL office, with Jude, with Julie, with Thomas Martin, with Tonya Lanny, and a number of our members to just talk about some of the issues that we're trying to work through with getting drivers into the queue, into the process, so they could go in and get any issues that they have at the DMV with their CDL taken care of. When I heard yesterday during the governor's press conference, when Riley Schneider, a reporter with the Nevada Independent, asked him, hey, our DMV office is going to be closed. And, his answer was yes. My heart kind of sunk because, there were some operations that said, you know what, we're done. We're closing up our shop here in Nevada. About 9 o'clock last night, I got some good news. Julie, do we have you? All right, Julie, I don't want to step on you. Jude, do you want to deliver the good news?
Hey, Paul, this is Jude. Yeah, Julie is having some technical difficulties. She can hear us, but Tanya, are you on the line as well?
I am here.
Tanya, would you do me the favor of providing the great news?
Well, absolutely. So we are very pleased to let you guys know that we will be opening our 2 CDL offices as of this next Monday morning at 8 a.m. We are not going to be making a big media blast or social media campaign about this opening. We are at this time just letting you guys know through industry and through Paulinosis Group that we will be open to serve this population at the Donovan and Spark CDL offices on Monday morning at 8 a.m. We are going to have a priority, and so we are going to ask you guys to please work with us through this. Our priority of the transactions are going to be completing the CLPs into CDLs if the skills test portion has already been completed by the drive school or the company that the drivers work for. We will also be allowing written testing to obtain your CLP, and we will be working on reinstatements for any CDL customers that do not require a drive skills test. We will have to maintain social distancing. We got very strict guidelines by the governor's office to allow us to open. We can only have 10 customers in the building at any time, and that includes our written testing area and our customer service counters. Strict guidelines for wearing face coverings to serve all of the public. We encourage customers to do so, but it is not required. But again, we do highly encourage it. Our staff are required to wear a face covering of some sort if they are serving. We are going to, the office in Sparks and Donovan are not equipped with an appointment system per se. They are for the drive tests once we get there, but again, we are not opening up with drive tests at this time. More to come on that. We are waiting approval from the FMCSA. We have submitted a plan and we will get to drive tests as soon as possible. We are just not able to at this point. We don't have that approval back yet. And then once we do, we will pass that information on through this group as well as the guidelines on how those are going to be handled, because we have submitted a plan to be able to do those outside of the vehicle without being in there with the CLP holder. So again, more to come on that later. But what we will do is, again, we'll keep this group updated. We do just ask you guys, please, for your patience and to work with us. But what we'll do is, so we don't have customers just standing there waiting outside of the office all day long with only being able to take 10 at a time, is we will come up with some sort of an internal process to list customers on a clipboard throughout the day and call you or text you when it's within a time frame for you to be able to come back to the office. So you're not just sitting there waiting and either able not to get served at all or waiting hours to get served. We will be working with the customers again to try and do the best we can to serve you under that limited social distancing guidelines. And again, we are not putting this on social media or anything at this time, because we do want to just try and get industry that has been working with us this whole time and sharing their concerns. We want to get you guys taken care of. Obviously, if other customers show up, that's great. We will assist them if we can. But we're not doing a big blast because we obviously don't want to flood the offices further, taking away from being able to assist you guys.
All right. Well, hey, and I see some stuff taking place on the Zoom chat. We have a question from Millard with National Truck Services Group. Does this include all services available, CDL and truck registration? Those are still being handled. Those are still being handled through the back office. These are limited services. This is from Julie, converting the commercial learner's permit to CDLs if those skill tests have been completed, written testing for the commercial license permits, and reinstatements so long as they don't require that skills test. Does that answer question? Everybody good with that? All right, fantastic.
Hey, Paul, sorry, I was trying to unmute. I got a quick one. If you got to get reinstated, you need to do the written. If you have to do the driving portion, can you go to a third party, complete it, and then come and go ahead and get totally reinstated?
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. I assume so. I just wanted to make sure.
Fantastic.
Paul?
Yes.
Paul, this is Jude. Thank you. And thank you, Tanya, for giving an overview of that. We're excited about this and our partnership with the Trucking Association and all of our stakeholders there. I'm just going to stress in our partnership, if you can make sure that you convey to the truckers and the other motor carrier agencies that, this is going to be a limited staff. I mean, even though it's full staff in the CDL offices, we do anticipate a lot of customers coming in, and just continue to partner with us and to be patient through this process. This first week is probably going to be very, very busy to process people through. And so we appreciate your guys' understanding and patience.
And what I'm going to do, Jude, I'm going to make a commitment to you, Julie, the leadership at the Nevada DMV, that what we send out, I want you guys to put your eyes on it and make sure that we're communicating the message that you want us to get out to our folks. So we'll circle up after this Zoom, and we'll get something out to our folks in terms of the process that needs to be followed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Don, do you have any updates or any questions for Don, or any more questions for the folks at the DMV?
So Paul, I really don't have anything new to add other than to just say that we are doing all motor carrier services in the back office through Carson. So if people want to continue to email, send it through the mail, fax it, whatever they have, we're processing everything 100% back office.
And that's it. TLC, MC? MCTLC at dmv.nv.gov. Once again, that's on our website as well. So, all right. Hey, thank you. Let's hear from let's go ahead and hear from our partners at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Mr. Ben Miller is going to talk about some movement on something we've been waiting for quite a while, hours of service, and then also on crash preventability. Bill. You're good. I can hear you.
Happy Friday. I want to commend the DMV. I think we should all talk to everybody we possibly can to let them know that they are going to operate on a limited basis, and we need to manage everybody's expectations. I've got a 16-year-old son that's waiting for a license and a permit and stuff like that, and I think we need to have those conversations with people. Let them know that it's going to be a limited basis for a while, and there's going to be a lot of catch up. So I commend the DMV, and I thank them a lot for.
Well, hey, do you know anybody who can get that plan approved a little quicker?
Well, we're working on that too. Trust me, we're having conversations with headquarters on a very routine basis. So we'll do the best we can. What I'd like to talk about today is a little off the main topic, but it's a big one, is that Paul was alluding to, that we came out a few days ago with a crash preventability determination program. And really what that means in a nutshell is really two things. For years, if you had crashes on your profile, a lot of times it was tough to get those off. It was tough for us to make a determination to decide, okay, it wasn't the carrier's fault. So what this is, I encourage each one of you to look at it, is you go into data queues now, and there's right in the center of it, there's a link for this crash determination program information. So the two main things that I want you to take away, and I'll keep this short, is one, basically now you can go in anytime, not just during an investigation where you're negotiating with us, or we're looking at someone ran into the back of you, or someone, some circumstance that you had no control over in a crash. Now you can go in anytime to your profile in the data queues, and you can challenge, if you will, those crashes and see and submit information and see if we agree, and then they'll come off as a non-preventable crash. The second thing is that it gave a set of guidelines to us to allow for that to happen, and it made it more clearly defined. And if you look down at those, I'll just give you a couple examples, would be someone was going the wrong direction, or you got struck in the rear, or you were legally parked, someone was under the influence and ran into you, things of that nature. So I'd encourage you to take a look at it. Paul and I for sure will have information available on his website. He's already said he would do it. He always does. And then as we open things up and we start doing more safety summits and things of that nature, we'll go into it in more detail. But I'd encourage each of you to go into data queues, go on this link and take a look at it. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Bill, thank you. And hey, it sounds like, any day now, maybe on hours of service.
Well, I've always said, I honestly can tell you I don't know when it's coming out. However, I will say this, is that when those of you that hear us, Paul and I speak together, I always say the same thing, is that you can tell by the undercurrent and the activity behind the scenes as to when something is approaching. So I'll give you an example. When they come to me and say, hey, Bill, we need some help doing some training and we need to start setting that up, you know it's getting close. So I've had a lot of that activity, so I think we're getting really close to that coming out in the Federal Register.
More good news. Hey, Mr. Bensmiller, thank you very much. Always appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Same here.
Hey, Nevada High Patrol. We have Don Plowman and John Arias on. Any updates from NHP?
Hey, good morning, Paul. This is Don.
Morning.
I just wanted to give an update from last week's conversation. We were talking about those fraudulent crashes. Clay Madsen's been working on it a little bit down in Las Vegas on a training program. I'm going to give it over to him real quick to give you an update on that, and then I'll finish out what I got.
Good morning, guys. How's everybody?
Good, Clay. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. First, Paul, I'd like to thank you and your group for putting these weekly meetings on. It's I know sometimes it gets a little redundant and it gets hard always doing the bad news, but this week was really good for the opening of the state. So thanks for that. As far as the class that I'm working on, can everybody hear me all right?
You're good, buddy.
Okay. So it's still in its infancy. Brian Drone, our industry training trooper down here in Las Vegas, and I have started working on it. What we're going to be focusing on is basically a good interview with all the parties involved. If we can knock down any witnesses, identify them, and get good written statements, take really good photographs. We're going to try to focus on any pre-existing injuries of any of the other occupants to see if that might help identify some of this stuff. The other thing we're going to be looking at is making sure the road troopers that aren't real familiar with commercial vehicles understand the dynamics of the vehicles. And also look at any outside video from neighboring businesses or that sort of thing. The one thing I'd like to ask industry is we've started encouraging people to put drive cams in the trucks. That helps as far as the frontal crashes with the commercial motor vehicles. Doesn't help so much with the rear, but any video that you have will help identify flow of traffic or time of day, which could be indicative of a fraudulent crash, how they stage it. So with that being said, if any of the trucking industry in this group has any videos of fraud, if they would be willing to forward that to us to include into our program, I would really appreciate it. If not, I understand that as well. And that's about all I have down here in Southern Command. We're still working away to make sure that we've got a safe transportation environment within the state and federal guidelines. So,
well, hey, that's phenomenal, Clay. And I just want to say, I really appreciate that. And, you know, you guys are our partners in safety. When you have folks that are out there that are intentionally causing crashes with trucks to defraud the trucking company, the insurance company, but, you know, unfortunately causing an accident maybe somewhere behind it, you know, going after those folks and having you guys with this kind of training to help us in our fight against fraud is huge. And it is very much appreciated. And like I said, this is something that we were going to do in March, kind of kick off a campaign where we focus on this. Of course, that got put on hold with everything. So to see that we're making some forward movement during this time, hey, I'm really proud of that and really proud of our relationship and having you guys in that with us. Thank you so much.
Hey, Paul, this is Lieutenant Arias. I also wanted to add a little bit of something. Karen Hill, are you on?
Yes, we are.
All right. One of the other things that we wanted to share that I started discussing, excuse me, last week was the ability to help industry identify these a little bit easier. So what I started talking about last week is that all our crashes are public records. One of the things that Randy discussed in his investigations with crashes that had happened in their region was identifying these rings of people that are connected to multiple different crashes, whether one time one's a driver, then they're a passenger, and then another time they're a witness. So what I wanted to kind of test out and see if we can develop this is if you're, let's say, with all these crashes that are coming in, they're being reported by the different companies to you, Paul, and you kind of are collecting this information. If you start developing a pattern that you believe that, hey, these people might have in fact conducted some sort of fraud, or there might be a ring, we can do two things. One, we can provide that information to our personnel, and I'll let Karen Hill kind of explain that a little bit. And then we can do a quick check to see, do we have multiple crashes that are identified with these individuals, right? It could be something as simple as saying, you know what, none of these people were involved in previous crashes with the Nevada Highway Patrol for the last, 4 years. And we'll be done with that, very easy. Or it could come back to, hey, yeah, no, this person has been involved in different parameters as a witness, as a driver, as a passenger, in 4 or 5 crashes. If the company would like to pursue, we can go ahead and provide those reports to you. There is a fee because we have to maintain the same thing for the public, the lawyers, and the different companies that come in. But now you have the access to this information, and then you can do further querying. I'm going to talk to my partners down in Southern Nevada for Metro, North Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, to see if this is something that we can come together and start providing. This will at least provide you folks the ability to start making those links. And then if we do have those links, we want to get that information back, because obviously I don't have the ability to place people to do this. But once we get that information, then we can see how we can help out, how we can either get involved and do the process with NDI or with another department, depending on where the majority of the cases are, to see what we can do to help out the industry and take an approach of a criminal approach and a civil approach with you guys on this. Now, this is all in the infancy state, but I want to make sure that I share with you, get ideas from you, and see if we can develop these good partnerships.
Hey, if this is the baby that is conceived during the coronavirus pandemic, and we can use it to, really kind of change the trajectory of a lot of these rings down in Southern Nevada, I'll take it. I love that. Hey, thank you very much, Lieutenant. Appreciate it.
No problem. Paul, if I could I just want to let Karen Hill kind of talk just for a second, just to maybe provide you guys some guidance of the best way to contact and the best way to get that information.
Karen.
No, thank you. Not a problem. If we could maybe have one point person to deal with, all we would need them to do is just give us a call. We can search for names. We can provide the report. We'd be glad to be part of this. We have a good group of people, and over time, stuff jumps out to some of our staff, and with common names or with situations that are very similar, but names have changed. But all other parameters are really following a patterns. But we'd be glad to assist and help in any way. If you can just sign us a point contact person, we'd be glad to work with them and with Lieutenant Arias and provide any information that you need. Do know that information that we give, we have to follow our guidelines with redaction, but we'd be glad to provide and help in any way we can.
Hey, Karen, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, let's go to our friends at NDOT. Mr. Dawson, you have any updates for us at the Department of Transportation? I see Hal's on. Hal? All right, Hal may be having the same issues that Julie was. Let's go ahead and, hey, very happy to have one of my good friends, somebody who I've worked with since she was running for the Assembly all the way back in 2004. And from the Assembly, she quit that job in 2010 and became Chief of Staff to Governor Sandoval. And, I will say, while Heidi was there, it was a smooth ship. She really did a good job. I'm going to be good and not comment about after Heidi left. But in 2016, she decided to get back, after leaving the governor's office, decided to get back into public service, ran for Senate, and is up for re-election this time. So she's running for her second term. But Heidi's got a great skill set. You know, I listened to Scott Adams. Everybody knows who Scott Adams is. He's the creator of Dilbert. And Scott said, who do you want to figure out how to approach this COVID-19 pandemic? Do you want a doctor? Do you want a CEO? Do you want an economist? And, you know, he kind of put this out there, you know, asking folks, do you want an engineer? And the last one, you know, according to him, was the correct answer. And he said, you want an engineer because engineers all the time are able to take a lot of complex problems and synthesize them into a solution. Heidi is an engineer. That is her background. We are very fortunate to have somebody who, you know, understands the private sector, somebody who has been a great friend to our industry. And Heidi, hopefully I didn't keep you too long hearing all that, but I do like, you know, that you get to hear kind of what our folks are doing and what some of our challenges are.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction, and thank you for having me on today. I enjoyed listening to everything. It sounds like you're updating your members on a regular basis on all facets that affect them. So I think that's really wise. And I know you've been doing weekly calls and a lot of newsletters. And I had called you because I loved your newsletters. I mean, you're getting the information out. And when you think about successful organizations, whether it's private sector or public, a lot of it's around transparency. So you've been really transparent in passing information. I also want to thank all the truckers and the related organizations, because you keep moving goods. And we know we've needed that desperately. When people are sheltered at home and they do make a trip to the grocery store, to Home Depot or whatever, you guys are helping, and women are helping us, you know, get the shelves stocked and keep moving. So again, I appreciate being here. And I thought I'd touch a little bit upon the budget, and then I'd talk a little bit more about sort of you know, where we are because of the budget and unemployment and so forth. So the state budget, the general fund, which are state dollars, revenue coming from the state, not from federal dollars, is about $8.9 billion every 2 years. Right now, we have about $400 million in a rainy day fund. And when we put the budget together, we're required to have a 5% ending fund balance. So if you look at 8.9 and you divide by 2, and then you times by 5%, you know, we've got about 220 million or so, 5% ending fund, plus a 400 million rainy day fund. Right now, we're expecting through the end of this year to be short probably 750 million. And I'm talking about this fiscal year 20. So we are anticipating exceeding reserves and ending fund balance probably by the end of the year. There's also been estimates that next year we could be off about 1.2 billion. And that's 1.2 billion of about 4.5 billion. So again, just to kind of put it in perspective, percentage wise, we are digging a pretty doggone big hole. And so, you know, the first rule of holes is when you're in one, you stop digging, right? So there's been some actions at the state level to freeze hiring. And my understanding is that I think through the Board of Examiners and through IFC, they're going to be declaring an emergency pretty soon here. When an emergency is declared across the state, they have access to the rainy day fund. So that's one of the first things, is basically you need to stop spending, but then you need to access cash. And so that'll be opened up. There's been discussions about special session or sessions. My understanding, or sort of the hearsay right now, is there may be one around liability, right? So we're going to have all these businesses, and thankfully businesses are now getting opened up, you know, with safety protocols, and I'll touch upon that a little bit more in a second. But we need to make sure that we don't have a barrage of lawsuits around COVID infections once we open up. So the governor has outlined protocols, wearing a mask, social distancing, reducing capacity to 50%, whether you're essential or non-essential. So we all have to abide by that. We also need to make sure that businesses can open, and that individuals, if they choose to go out, take personal responsibility to help keep themselves and others safe. So we're looking at potentially a session around liability. Then there's an expectation that the federal government will provide additional funds to the state and local governments. And right now, I believe we have about 1.25 billion that's been pushed out from the feds. About 500 to 600 million. I couldn't quite find the exact number. Went to Clark County and the city of Las Vegas so far, and there's going to be decisions made around the other 800 million. We do expect more money, and I believe that the rumor is the state might wait to have a second special session until after we figure out what the push down is from the federal government. I was the Republican leader in the assembly during the 2008-2010 recession. And I can tell you, and I pass this on to folks, one of the tricks when you get federal dollars is to make sure you've got discretion, because if they put it in certain buckets and they have certain maintenance of efforts, it's much more difficult for us to spend. So we need to have discretion so we can decide where we need to put funding. I'm very pleased that we are starting to open. We're in phase 1. It's been very concerning. I get a lot of emails, and most of my emails are about unemployment insurance and inability to access unemployment insurance. We have an archaic system that uses COBOL as a programming language. And finally, this administration is going to contract with a vendor to get those dollars out. And just to give you an idea, over 412,000 claims have been submitted in just 2020, 412,000. Right now, we're at 274,850 active claims. That's a 19.9% unemployment rate. That's the highest the state's ever faced. So again, 19.9, and that's actually who's filed. There may be more people out there, but we're sitting at 19.9. With that, at that level, there's a trigger for extended benefits for Nevadans. So our base is 26 weeks. Now, anybody who's filing will be able to get an additional 13 weeks. The CARES Act also did something different. On average, a weekly unemployment check is a little bit under $400 for a Nevadan. The CARES Act from the federal government added $600. So a lot of folks are receiving, or you can receive, I should say, around $1,000 a week. All may not be receiving that, but you can receive about $1,000 a week as unemployed. So what we found during the last recession is as extended benefits were extended, that helped a lot of people. But there's also the trade-off. Sometimes people aren't as anxious to get back to work. And I think the governor actually mentioned that last night, that the motivation, the incentive to go back to work can go down if it's easier or it's to their benefit, I should say, to not be employed. So there's some current concern around that, making sure people get back to work. One of the reasons our unemployment's so high, which you would expect, is because hospitality's been offline. So gaming's been offline. Gaming taxes are 26% of the total general fund in the state of Nevada. And gaming, the dollars that they bring in now from the hospitality side, so from rooms, entertainment, food and beverage, is actually greater than gaming. So the 26% is the gaming piece, but then we've got sales tax, live entertainment tax, modified business tax. We got all these other taxes that we're missing too. And so that's why we're going to have this big deficit. So I'm really happy that we're back online. There was a quote in an article in the Wall Street Journal today around safety in business. And it was from the head of Home Depot. It isn't safety or business. It's safety now, which allows business. So I appreciate that your workforce will be wearing masks. We need to get everybody to wear masks, whether you are the employee or whether you are a patient, a client, a customer. The better we are at social distancing and wearing masks, the better we're going to do from move from phase 1 to phase 2. So again, I'm open to questions, but I truly appreciate the work that your crews have been doing.
Mask now,
They're vital.
Heidi,
Huh?
that is something, hey, all employers are required to make their employees wear masks. We tape Nevada Newsmakers here, which is a show with Sam Shad. On Monday, he is interviewing Terry Reynolds, who is the head of business and industry for our state. They oversee OSHA. So I made sure to let Mr. Shad know that everybody, including Mr. Reynolds, was going to have to be here and wear a mask while they are in our facility. So, that is, an edict that's come down from the governor. I know it says require employees, but, really don't feel it's fair just to have employees wear it and let other folks slide. So we're getting our signage up and, just making sure that everybody, including the folks that are going to enforce the rules, are going to comply with the rules.
Yeah, and it's both sides of the equation, right? It can't just be the employees, employees. We all need to wear our masks wherever we are and keep up with social distancing, or we'll be back where we are. We'll have another surge. And I just kind of FYI too, there was a mention yesterday that we have capacity in hospitals. Emergency rooms now are off 30 to 50% because folks are putting off going in. And there was another article I was reading this morning as well about just the concern about that. People who have heart problems, diabetes, all these things. So there's the repercussions of being closed and sort of that fear. So that's why it's important to get reopened and get business restarted and use the safety protocols necessary to move forward. Thank you.
Senator, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Any questions for Senator Severs Gansert? You did, in honor of your dad's 80th birthday this last legislative session, you did, and that was the name that you ran in, I remember in 2004.
Right. My maiden name is Severs, and I used it when I originally ran, and then my dad turned 80 last year. So we did some recognition at the, on the floor during the session, which was really nice.
Any questions for Senator Severs Gansert?
Hey, Senator, in your discussions, are you hearing any appetite for tax increases, or is it more around federal stimulus and freezes?
Right now, most people are talking about federal dollars being pushed down, but it's hard to imagine that there's anything out there to tax, right? Gaming's been shut down. Businesses are probably on the verge of bankruptcy, or some of them are, and it's been really, really tight, but there's always folks that have that appetite. So it is concerning. And Paul mentioned I am running for re-election. Just so you know, I'm the 8th seat. So to preclude the Democrats from having 2/3 supermajority in both houses, we need the Republicans in the Senate have to have 8 seats, and mine is the closest in the state. So this is the 8th seat to preclude a 2/3 supermajority. And I'm a balance of power person. I always have worked across the aisle. I've always, when I've been in the Assembly and the Senate, I've always been in minorities and worked very well across the aisle. But you have to be able to have a balance of power. And when we had Governor Sandoval, he was able to veto things if bills came across that were out of line or just a little bit too far off. So the seat's really important. So thanks.
All right, Senator, thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you all.
One of my favorite things about this job, besides representing an amazing industry, is the colleagues that I have across the country. And it's really great if I get a call from one of our members who's having an issue, anywhere from, Maine and Vermont or Iowa, and, especially our neighbor to the west, California, to be able to pick up the phone and call my colleagues. Shawn Yadon's one of my very good friends. His brother, Mike, is on our board. He represents FedEx. And Shawn is the president of the California Trucking Association. Shawn's been dealing with an issue that we dealt with here in Nevada last legislative session around the independent contractor law. There's something that's called an ABC test. The B prong of the test says you cannot hire someone as an independent contractor if they are in the same business as you are. Well, that really doesn't work for the trucking industry, that at times requires owner-operators to be hired by trucking companies to help increase their capacity. That really gives, especially our smaller carriers, the ability to meet the demands of their customers at certain times a year. And while we were successful in fighting that off in Nevada, and this was a national push by the Teamsters, this is something that California has been dealing with for a while. First with a Supreme Court decision called Dynamics, which had some really bad fact patterns where you had a trucking company fire all of their employees and then rehire them the next day as independent contractors. And then AB 5, which was a bill that was passed this last fall. Shawn and the California Trucking Association, CTA, have been at the forefront of this and have actually had some success in challenging this law. And that not only helps, you know, the folks in California. That helps all of us. Mr. Yadon.
Paul, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Well, listen, thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be with you and your members and others there from Nevada. Just very quickly, as you mentioned, a quick thumbnail sketch of the history on AB5 or the whole independent contractor battle in California. And as you mentioned, that Dynamics decision back in the spring of 2018, we had actually filed suit in the fall of 2018 challenging the Dynamics decision by the Supreme Court on the grounds that for trucking, there is federal preemption. The F4A, as we call it, the Federal Aviation Administration Authorization Act, actually preempts states from promulgating rules or passing state legislation that would have an impact on rates, routes, and services. So certainly, if you have a decision like the Dynamics decision from the California Supreme Court, which, by the way, was a unanimous decision of the Supreme Court, that tells you where the Supreme Court was on this particular case. It's one thing that they ruled on the facts of the Dynamics case. It's another thing that they took that opportunity in rendering that decision to basically establish law or legislate from the bench, as we would say. And they did that. And they overstepped and they went out of bounds of just ruling on a case. They established that ABC test, Paul, as you mentioned and detailed. So we challenged that. In the meantime, during the course of 2019, the state legislature did pass Assembly Bill 5, everybody knows it as AB 5, to codify that Dynamics decision into state law. But in addition to that, they actually broadened the scope of that ABC test to cover every aspect of labor law in California. So what we did in having a challenge to the Dynamics decision already in federal court, we went to the judge in our particular case in the Southern District in San Diego of U.S. Federal Court, and we sought to amend our complaint to now incorporate AB 5 since it was signed into law last September. The court allowed us to do that. We refiled that amended complaint in November. Now, as you got closer to the end of the calendar year and the effective date of AB 5, and basically, again, that elimination of the independent contractor model for all intents and purposes for trucking, in our case, we sought a temporary restraining order from the federal court. Based on the calendar, it didn't look like we were even going to get in front of the judge prior to January 1st. So we had our big doubts that we would get a TRO granted, and that's a very, very steep hill to climb to get a TRO. You have to show to the court your ability to win on the case, a presumption or at least an attitude that you have a strong chance to win the case, and you have to show irreparable harm in that law taking effect. We were pleasantly surprised on December 31st, the afternoon of December 31st, to actually get word from the court that the judge had granted that temporary restraining order, basically blocking the state of California from enforcing AB 5 and that ABC test on motor carriers operating in California. We quickly shifted gears and went for, because a temporary restraining order is just that, it's temporary. So it had a shelf life of about 2 weeks. The judge could certainly extend it. We went back and filed for a preliminary injunction. Again, another very steep hill to climb. We received that preliminary injunction on January 13th. That preliminary injunction is still in effect today based on our suit. Since that time, and I know I'm getting wordy here, but the state of California, as well as the Teamsters as an intervener in this case, did appeal the granting of that preliminary injunction. So they appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that fast forwards where we're at today. That appeal is now in front of the Ninth Circuit. We just filed our brief Wednesday of this week. So 2 days ago, we filed our brief before the Ninth Circuit, and there will be consideration, oral arguments and such, probably in the summer. Again, not knowing with the COVID-19 how they're going to deal with that. So we are in front of the Ninth Circuit fighting this appeal from the state of California and the Teamsters, who are trying to basically eliminate that preliminary injunction. We need to prevail before the Ninth Circuit, keep that preliminary injunction in place. Then we need to go back to that district court, federal court in San Diego, and then we need to win on our case before that judge. And that's really where we stand today, Paul.
Well, and I will let everybody know, last week we put it out to the Nevada Trucking Association Board of Directors. We were asked to sign on to an amicus brief supporting what CTA was doing. It was a unanimous approval. So the Nevada Trucking Association is now part of this. And hey, really appreciate, Shawn, all the work that you guys have done over there. And, you know, it is always nice to be able to celebrate some successes. And I know I've heard from a number of folks, you know, who, hey, we dodged a bullet in Nevada. You know, unfortunately it hit you guys. But the fact that you've been successful in the Ninth Circuit Court with F4A, you know, I see some fairly broad implications on there. Anytime we're talking about states trying to do something that is going to hamper the ability of our industry to operate in interstate commerce. So, you know, it really is appreciated what you guys are doing, appreciate the leadership at the CTA, and also, you know, here on our own association to move forward and support you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And Paul, as you said, we need to win on this case because it not only affects California, it certainly not only affects people who roll trucks in California, but as you mentioned, that attempt or that look by Nevada, as well as New York, New Jersey, Illinois, as some other examples of states who are looking to pass that ABC test in those states. If we can get some precedential type of decisions and opinions through our case, that sets a great shot across the bow across the country to let those other states know you can't go down that same path. There has been a decision on this California case, and it's clearly demonstrated that the F4A does preempt these types of state laws that would basically demolish the independent contractor model. So if you care about the independent contractor model, if you want to see that continue in terms of trucking, it's important. We're seeking support all the time, Paul. If I can make a big pitch here.
Make the money pitch, buddy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is expensive. We have one of the best trial firms in the country on board handling the trial phase of this. We also, at the same time we were hatching this whole strategy, we brought on one of the best appellate firms in the country to represent us because we knew no matter what, whether we were on the losing side appealing up, or if the state was on the losing side, which they are right now, they're appealing up. We know that at some point this may even go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we know that costs a lot of money. So the one thing I've told all of our members, and I'll share with your members and everybody across the country I speak with, we can only take this case as far as the money takes us. The state and the Teamsters will run every legal maneuver to try to run the clock on us from a financial standpoint with different motions and different maneuvers. And so we have to continue to be able to stoke the engine with the fuel, with the money, in order to keep pushing this case to every step we need to ultimately win. So every dollar counts. And I would just say to anybody who cares about the independent contractor model, whether you're operating in California or not, please consider helping to support what we're doing on this case. And you can certainly reach out to Paul, and he can pass along my information as well.
Hey, Shawn, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Yadon? All right. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? Well, hey, hearing none, I just once again want to say thank you to everyone who participated on our call today, to Senator Heidi Gansert, to Mr. Yadon. The great news that we got from the DMV and FMCSA and our friends of the Highway Patrol, really appreciate this. You know, NDOT says they're going to send us a link to the Western Region dashboard. They have set up an informal PPP exchange program. So that's going to be great if people have, you know, issues getting PPE. Once again, I've got hand sanitizer right here, my little Keep Calm and Truck On. We've got gloves. You know, although we're down to we're down to about a quarter of what we had. We had over 50,000. So, you know, we've given out quite a bit of gloves. If you need gloves, let me know. Hand sanitizer, and, you know, once again, on the masks are the masks. I'm as frustrated as everybody is, being held up. You know, when they told me, hey, it's held up in customs, I thought, oh, great, they're here. No, it was held up in Chinese customs, and now it's held up in U.S. customs. So, you know, once again, as soon as those come here, we're going to be rocking and rolling. We got the assembly line already in the back, and we'll get those out to you folks. So once again, I'll just put it out for any questions, comments, anything for the good of the order, as they say at my Elks Lodge.
Hey, Paul, I'd just like to thank you for putting this together on a weekly basis. You continue to bring the best minds in the industry together on a weekly basis. And it's been great for us every week to hear from Bill and Don and Highway Patrol and everybody else. And appreciate all you're doing for the industry.
Hey, thank you guys for what you do. And, you know, I'm just, I'm happy to be here to help everybody, and you know, once again, meet you guys where you are, and that means a lot, Mr. Truman. Thank you. All right, that being said, hey, everybody have a fantastic weekend. If you feel comfortable hugging your mother, great. If not, you know, socially distance, but, you know, great Mother's Day this weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms on the call a little early, and good health and Godspeed, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.